So, we've got the Iranian agency turned on right now, and let's just quickly take a look and see what they have reported today. Okay, we've got multiple swarms breaking out on both sides of the plate boundary. Let me turn off the rings or turn them down so you can see. At both of our bends at the plate boundary, equal-sized earthquakes, guys. 4.9 to the north and a 4.7 to the south with a 4.4. So that adds up to 4.8. So 4.9 to the north, 4.9 to the south. That's pushing into the west. Okay, it's going to push into South Europe. So going into tomorrow, guys, Iran itself has 4.9 potential going into South Europe. Now, let me go ahead and turn on the Russian agency. Let's see if that'll connect now. Here we go. Here's Russia. Russia showing us our earthquakes. And they're all pretty much similar in size, maybe within a point or two of what the USGS is reporting. For the most part, pretty reliable. So you can just see they're all within a point of each other. USGS, for instance, reporting these earthquakes here as 5.7. Russia detected across the planet, reporting at 5.5. So they got it within a couple points. I would give them credit for that. It's all the way around on the other side of the planet. It's not their area of responsibility, but yet they have it. Okay? So, overall, when we take a look at our combined earthquake feeds that have been made available to me by my dedicated viewers, we have a global look at what's going on, and you can clearly see we're at a time of heightened unrest. So, have an earthquake plan ready and be prepared just in case. And the pressure is going to transfer over to the east. Okay? So, in the next day, 2 days, pressure is going to transfer to the east and hit our fracking operations. The reason the fracking operations are going to be hit is solely because the pressure seeks the path of least resistance to a spot to release, and these pumping operations are thousands of points where humans have drilled down into the crust and created perforations in the crust halfway across the plate. And so the pressure is heading east-southeast. It's heading towards those operations. It's going to hit there. When it releases, it may be equal to the size of the earthquake striking on the west coast. We've seen it happen before. Okay? So, I've been pushing it. I'm now up for 30 hours. So, I think I'm going to take a little break. I don't know if I'm going to go to sleep, but I'm definitely going to be laying here listening for additional dings if anything big hits. And I'll probably break off here for the next couple hours, see how things develop out. All the locations we were talking about yesterday were hit. In case you missed it, we issued warnings for the West Coast to be hit by 5.7, 5.8 activity today, yesterday, and today. We talked about it. And the warnings were issued for the past 3 days for California for 5.7 to 5.8 activity. Now look at it. So the 5.7s are where it topped out. We also issued warnings for the coast of Japan to be struck by low 6.0 and low 6.0, 5.9 hit. And we warned the area where the letter D is to the tip of the red arrow. And look where the earthquake struck, at the tip of the red arrow. So, 6.0 struck exactly as expected there. Then a deep earthquake occurred, which means there's an additional threat for another large earthquake to occur. 5.8 to 6.8 off this deep earthquake here. You see raised slightly high off the globe. I'm kind of waving it around so you can see it in comparison to the shallow earthquakes. So this deep 4.8, I'll highlight it, could lead to a shallow 5.8 to 6.8 in a nearby silent area. An area that hasn't been hit yet by earthquake activity. Could be very close to the swarm up in Japan, and it should also strike over towards Taiwan. Both locations should be hit. Okay, so there's a lot going on right now as we're talking. I mean, major activity picking up. Now the reason for that goes back a few days, and we have to go back to our deep earthquakes and our talk about what was going to happen up here in the North Pacific due to what happened over the past week down in the South Pacific. We had one of the largest earthquakes of the year strike down in South America. We had all our zones be hit across the arrows. You see the arrows in the mid-Pacific. Even there was hit. Easter Island. Then we go over to the west. We have our deep earthquakes raised high off the globe on both sides of the Pacific. See them raised high off the globe? Okay? Those deep earthquakes are indicators that there was going to be major movement on the plate. You have to imagine an area 8,000 miles across, 10,000 kilometers across, moved down below with these deep earthquakes on both sides of the West Pacific. That has since compensated over to the east. causing our shallow, large earthquakes on both sides. That's why we were watching California, by the way, due to the other deep earthquakes and the other activity that was striking around the plate. To keep consistent with the earthquake expected in Japan, that's why we issued the warning for California. We said Japan and California were going to be hit by equal-sized earthquakes. And look what happened today, guys. I mean, here, I'm going to end this little update here by showing you something that just blows me away. We warned both Japan and California for 5.8 to 6.0 activity. Clearly, nearly a 6 struck here. I mean, multiple 5s, not just a 5.7, but 5.6, 5.5, and a dozen 4s, or a dozen, at least 5 4s, and dozens of 3s and 2s. Now look what I'm going to do here. I'm going to park my mouse over the earthquakes. I'm going to turn on the grid so you can see the latitude and longitude. Okay? So you can see I'm not going to move my mouse. I'm going to literally park it here, and I'm going to turn the globe, and I'm going to let it spin. And as it spins, here, let me pick up the speed a little bit here. I'm going to take this back and do it a little quicker. I don't want to take all day going across the Pacific. Look where this matches up. Now, I'm not moving my mouse. Well, damn, the mouse just moved on its own. Hold on. I want to do this right. You got to see this. This is something I just noticed today that just blows my mind. And again, keep in mind, we warned both Japan and California to be struck by similar sized movement. Now, here we go. Okay, so let's get it going. All right. Son of a gun. This is a new mouse. It's a new, very sensitive mouse, and there's no way for me to turn it down. It doesn't have a turn down button. Well, okay. Well, it's not going to do it. I don't know what's going on here, guys. I'm trying to drag the mouse across the plate to show you that these are on the same exact longitude. Maybe I can do it from left to right easier than I can do it from right to left. Okay, let's try this again. This is amazing. Okay, there. Perfect. Okay. Now my hands are off the mouse. Watch where the earthquake in Japan lines up with. It's worth it. It's worth the watch. It's worth me messing it up like 4 times for you guys to see this. Now look again. Now look, boom. Look at how close that is. Latitude-wise. I mean, we are talking within just a few degrees off the same size earthquake. And we got a tennis match going on here right now between the West Pacific and the East Pacific, and that resulted in our very large earthquake this past week. I mean, it was just a few days ago, on Christmas Day, down here in South America, the 7.9, which they downgraded to 7.6, but 7.9, that's largest earthquake of the year, just like the other 7.9. They're like the 2 largest earthquakes of the year, striking in the last week and a half. Now, to end this video, or to end this update, let me show you the USGS last month of earthquakes. And I'm only going to show you the big earthquakes. We're going to take all the smaller ones off the map. But before I do that, look at the earthquakes raised high off the globe. You see those? Okay, those are our deep earthquakes. And each deep earthquake location we have marked with a letter D. And let me turn off of our grid here now. We have a letter D indicating where there should be and are expected deep earthquakes. Now, we don't move that letter D, it stays static. This has been on the map for over a month, and we've been watching for 7 years to determine these locations. Deep earthquakes strike where we have the letter Ds. It's no coincidence. So, now look at the last month's worth of earthquakes again, and let me turn down the rings so we can get a better idea of where they're striking. Look at where all our deep earthquakes are occurring. Do you see where our letter Ds are? Maybe I need to turn off the rings entirely for you to see this. Okay? Each spot where we have our letter Ds, we have our stepped up deep earthquakes. So, the deep earthquakes lead to shallower, larger earthquakes. That being said, let me get all these smaller little guys off the screen. And we're only going to look at the big earthquakes now, 6.0 and greater. And there's going to be a few 5.9s on here because of the downgrades. But if you have to include the downgrades in there. So they all started at 6. And you'll see, look at the range of 6s and 7s that hit over the past month. This is heavy. This is a lot of movement. Normally there's 2 to 3 6s a week. At the most, 2 to 3. And clearly, we're above that. And you can go through and do a rough count, but I'm already telling you, we're at like more like 18, 20. And if you include in the 7.9 that struck here, that was the largest earthquake of the year. It was actually an 8.0 that they downgraded. And then you include in the 7.9 that struck here that they downgraded to 7.8. And you include the 7.9 down here that struck that they downgraded to 7.6. Well, 7.9 is the largest earthquake of the year. You're also going to notice there's two deep earthquakes. And let me give this a spin so you can really make note of how opposite they are from each other. These are almost antipodal, as we would call it, which is on the opposite side of the planet. What this proves to me is that both sides of the planet moved at the far perimeter of the West Pacific and the far perimeter of the East Pacific deep down below the plate over the last week. And this movement down below translated to two large earthquakes up above, which you can see on the screen here now. So the 7.6s, and let's get these smaller earthquakes now off there. Let's just look at the 7s. See the 7s? Now look at the deep earthquakes. So each deep earthquake is accompanied on both sides of the planet by a shallow, larger earthquake, at least, and again guys, this is at least 1 to 2 magnitudes larger than the deep earthquake that occurred above or below it. So I hope you can see this here. Maybe there's another way I could show this to you, which is to show you a see-through Earth look. Okay, now we can see through the planet. So as we can see through the planet, right now we're looking down on South America. I think that's pretty obvious. And we're looking through to the other side. And as we look through to the other side, I can connect these with what's called an angle. This is a feature on Earthquake 3D. And the angle feature shows us the angle to the core of the Earth in relation to the other earthquakes. And you'll see they're almost connected, but not fully. But on one side of the planet, we're lopsided with a heavy amount of movement. On the other side of the planet, we have compensation movement, also happening near the same depth. This is not a coincidence. This happens on a regular basis. Now, not this large. For it to happen this large, it means that there's something going on currently down at the core of the Earth. And I would have to venture a good guess at this point. Now, we'll call it a guess because there's no way for me to really know this, is that there's no way to test this, I should say. But the evidence is pointing towards something going on at the core that is not related, or maybe indirectly related, to solar activity. Right now, there's minimum solar. There's an Earth-facing coronal hole, but the streams are low. I just watched the solar update this morning. If you guys didn't get a chance to watch Suspicious Observer's update, go over and check it out. I recommend him for solar information. Maybe not so much for earthquake, but whatever. That's a little joke. But if you want to go check out a solar video, he shows it. It's a low solar stream, coronal hole facing, but no stream hitting us yet. Low solar activity, solar storm wise. Proton flux is low. Electron count is low. What can I say? X-ray flux is low, which means that the activity that's happening now is not solar related. It's related to those deep earthquakes. And those deep earthquakes are related to activity down through the core of the Earth, coming up through the upper mantle, going into the asthenosphere, which is basically the melted magma down below the plate. So there's something going on. What is it? Your guess is as good as mine. What's leading to it? Man-made cause? Maybe. Solar cause? Maybe. No evidence of that right now. Whatever would be causing this perturbance is causing it from within. It's an interesting topic for me to even think about and talk about. When I'm not talking to you guys, I'm thinking about what could be causing it. The only way to find out, there's no real way to find out. But we can lead, follow where our noses lead at this point and just try to figure out why the deep earthquakes are occurring. That's a question I'm asking. That's a question a lot of people who are watching asking, and we'll have an answer at some point. At this point, all I can tell you is that the deep earthquakes lead to shallower, larger earthquakes, and they spread out across the plates. The plate tries to equalize pressure on both sides, and that's why we get similar sized earthquakes, huge distances apart that are on the same longitude, same magnitude, within a few hours of each other. It's a quick process. It doesn't take years to happen. It takes days and weeks at the most, but more like days. Okay, so that's my update for now. I'll be back in a little while. Guys, I've been going for straight up 30-something hours, maybe 31 hours at this point. So I think it's probably time for me to just shut my mouth, be quiet for a little while, sit back and watch and wait and see what happens. If you live in the Midwest, guys, please let me stress, have a plan. Okay? Peace out. Much love.